The crowd froze when the Navy SEAL's German Shepherd suddenly lunged, barking at a woman holding a tiny puppy. Luggage dropped. People gasped. The woman clutched the pup to her chest. "Please, make him stop," she cried, but the dog wouldn't. His barking only grew louder, more desperate, as if he sensed a danger no human could see. Seconds later, when the truth came out, the entire airport went silent. Before we begin, hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? A thin veil of winter snow clung to the pavement outside Denver International Airport, where cold air carried the scent of jet fuel and distant coffee. Ethan Miller adjusted the strap of his tactical vest as he walked across the concourse, his boots striking the polished floor with steady purpose. Ethan, a Navy SEAL in temporary reassignment due to an injury suffered during a covert mission overseas, carried himself with the calm confidence of someone who had survived more storms than most people could imagine. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the athletic build of a man sculpted through grueling discipline. His hair was dark and cut military short, complementing the square jaw dusted with rough stubble. A faint scar crossed his right eyebrow, a pale reminder of a near-fatal explosion he had endured in Afghanistan, one that still echoed in his restless dreams. His eyes were a deep steel gray, always scanning, always reading the room. Beside him moved Atlas, his canine partner and the creature he trusted more than most humans. Atlas was a massive 3-year-old German Shepherd, his coat a blend of silver and charcoal, his amber eyes alert beneath the soft terminal lighting. His gait was measured yet powerful, paws nearly silent, a graceful predator in uniform. Though trained for combat and detection, Atlas had a gentle dignity, a loyal heart that only Ethan saw. The two shared a bond forged in fire. Atlas had dragged Ethan out from rubble the night the explosion nearly ended his life. Since then, they were inseparable. Today's assignment was mundane compared to the missions Ethan was used to. He was here simply to support civilian airport security, to ease himself back into work after medical leave. Yet, beneath the routine he carried a quiet tension. He hated crowds. Too unpredictable. Too many memories of chaos disguised as normalcy. The airport flowed with people in winter coats wheeling suitcases, voices overlapping in a constant hum. Announcements echoed from overhead speakers, delayed flights, boarding instructions, reminders to keep luggage attended. Ethan inhaled slowly, grounding himself. He didn't show anxiety. SEALs never did. But in his chest, a knot of unease pulled tighter with every step. Atlas trotted calmly at his side until suddenly, he stopped, mid-stride. Not a hesitation, but a full, rigid freeze. Ethan felt the leash go taut. Atlas's body stiffened, hackles raised like bristling needles along his spine. Ethan followed the line of Atlas's stare and saw her. A young woman stood near a seating area, holding a small puppy in her arms. She was in her mid-20s, tall and slim, in an oversized wool coat the color of warm sand. Her long brown hair spilled from beneath a knitted beanie, brushing over delicate shoulders. The pale winter light made her fair skin appear almost translucent, and beneath her lashes her eyes were an exhausted hazel, eyes that looked like they were used to holding back fear. In her arms, she cradled a tiny golden retriever puppy, no more than 3 months old. The puppy had a bright caramel coat and ears that drooped like silk, its nose black and shiny, its paws too big for its small body. The puppy nuzzled into her scarf, trembling. Her name, Ethan would later learn, was Emily Carter, an unassuming name for someone whose presence would change everything. Right now, all Ethan could see was that something about her, her posture, her aura, made Atlas react. Atlas barked once, sharp and commanding, the sound reverberating through the atrium. People jumped, startled. A few kids gasped and clung to their parents. Ethan tightened his grip on the leash. "Atlas, heel," he said, voice low and authoritative. Atlas didn't heel. Instead, he took 2 powerful steps forward, his gaze locked on Emily, as if she were the only person in the terminal. Emily stopped breathing. Ethan could see it, the way her chest froze, her hands stiffened around the puppy, her eyes widened in terror. She took a half step back, bumping into a row of metal chairs. The puppy let out a soft confusion whine, sensing her panic. Ethan approached, showing his badge. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Emily blinked rapidly, trying to compose herself. She wasn't just surprised, she was terrified. I'm fine," she stuttered, clutching the puppy tighter. Her voice trembled like someone suppressing tears. The puppy squirmed in discomfort. Ethan softened his tone. He's trained. If he's reacting, it's because he senses something. Emily's lips parted, but no words came. Her breathing was uneven, like someone running from something unseen. Ethan subtly studied her. Most people in airports radiated impatience or boredom. Emily radiated fear. Atlas barked again, louder this time. People turned to watch. A security guard began walking over. The puppy wriggled in distress, a weak yelp escaping its tiny throat. Ethan noticed something. When Emily shifted the puppy, something metallic inside her bag clicked. Atlas's reaction intensified. He growled, low, warning, protective. "Are you carrying anything that might alarm a detection dog?" Ethan asked gently, trying not to escalate the moment. Emily shook her head too fast, too rehearsed. "No, just dog toys, treats, nothing dangerous." Her eyes flicked, not at Ethan, but toward the exit behind him. A tiny gesture, but for a trained observer, a red flag. She was calculating escape. Ethan moved subtly, blocking the exit path without looking like he was blocking it. "Emily, right?" he guessed softly. Her mouth parted. "How? You look like an Emily." The truth was, he read the name on her luggage tag, but he needed her to relax, not panic. Emily swallowed hard, her fear palpable. Is your dog going to hurt us?" Ethan crouched slightly to Atlas's level, laying a grounding hand on his fur. "Atlas doesn't attack people unless there's a threat," he said calmly. "He's warning me about something. Not you, maybe something on you. Or the puppy." Emily clutched the tiny dog protectively, whispering as if the puppy could understand. I didn't want any of this." Something inside Ethan shifted. That wasn't a sentence of someone guilty. That was a sentence of someone trapped. Memories hit him, of civilians overseas, coerced by threats, forced into impossible decisions. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Emily," he said softly, "I need you to come with me to secondary screening. You're not under arrest. I just need to understand why Atlas is reacting." She looked down at the trembling puppy. Her lips quivered. When she looked back up, tears shimmered in her eyes. Ethan felt a strange tightening in his chest. Atlas barked once, deep, determined, as if urging Ethan onward. The airport resumed its rhythm, but for the three of them, time had just shifted. And deep inside Ethan, a quiet certainty formed. Atlas wasn't sensing danger. He was sensing someone who needed to be saved. Atlas's barking echoed along the polished floor as Ethan guided Emily toward the secured screening area, his hand firm on the leash. The air grew warmer near the corridor that led to the private room, and Ethan could feel Atlas's muscles tense with every step. Emily walked stiffly, the puppy clutched to her chest like a fragile secret. Ethan noticed her knuckles had turned white from how tightly she held the small creature. The puppy whimpered, a tiny sound drowned beneath Atlas's low growl. Emily's eyes darted everywhere, floor, walls, people passing by, as if every escape route was measured in seconds. Ethan could practically feel her pulse vibrating through the air. She reminded him of civilians he had seen overseas, people who weren't bad, but desperate. He held on to that thought as they entered the small screening room. The door slid shut with a mechanical hiss. Inside was a simple metal table, a scanner, and a single chair. A security officer stood waiting, a tall woman in her early 30s named Officer Jenna Brooks. Jenna had short auburn hair tucked behind her ears and wore a crisp uniform. She was athletic and steady, with a posture that revealed discipline and a face that revealed nothing. Jenna had deep olive skin and sharp dark brown eyes, the kind that could measure a person within seconds. She wasn't military, but airport security had hardened her into a professional who didn't react emotionally. She nodded to Ethan with an air of mutual respect. "Secondary screening?" she asked, in a voice that carried efficient authority. Ethan nodded. "Atlas has a strong reaction. Something's off." Jenna turned her gaze to Emily. "Ma'am, please set your bag on the table." Emily hesitated, clutching the puppy even tighter. Ethan noticed the tremor in her hands and stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Emily, we're not accusing you of anything. This is standard protocol when a trained canine reacts." Emily swallowed hard. "He keeps barking at me. I swear I didn't do anything wrong." Her voice cracked, and Ethan saw something raw beneath it. Panic, shame, or something like guilt. The puppy shivered against her, and Ethan crouched, speaking gently to the little dog. "Hey there, buddy." Up close, he noticed detail. This puppy was small, maybe 10 weeks old, fur soft like feathers. Its collar was thick for such a tiny neck. Too thick. And too stiff. Atlas lowered his nose toward the collar, sniffing intensely, whining deep in his throat. Emily suddenly took a step back, clutching the puppy away from Atlas. "Please don't let him touch him," she blurted, eyes wide with panic. Jenna straightened. "Ma'am, that reaction doesn't help your case." Ethan extended a calming hand. "Emily, we're here to help. Let's take this slowly." Emily opened her mouth, but only a shaky breath came out. Ethan softened his voice, tapping gently into the part of him that remembered trauma, his own. "Someone hurt you before?" She froze. He'd hit the target. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and the room thickened with something quiet and painful. Atlas stayed close at Ethan's side, tail low, gaze locked on the puppy. The message was clear. Danger wasn't Emily. It was something attached to her. Jenna stepped forward, patient but firm. "Ma'am, I need you to hand the puppy to Officer Miller." Emily's lip trembled. I can't. If I do, everything falls apart." Ethan's hand rose slowly. "Emily, trust me." A silence stretched, tense and trembling. Finally, Emily surrendered the puppy to him, turning away as if she had given up her last piece of safety. Ethan held the little golden retriever carefully. The puppy whimpered but relaxed in his arms, nose buried in his vest. Ethan felt an unexpected warmth in his chest. He hadn't held anything this fragile since before the explosion overseas, before he became a man held together by scars and adrenaline. Atlas sniffed the puppy's collar again and let out a bark, not aggressive, but urgent. Ethan unlatched the collar. It was heavy, too heavy. He felt along its inside seam and paused when his fingers encountered something hard. No fabric, no stitching, metal, hidden. He held the collar up to the fluorescent light. Jenna leaned in, her professional mask slipping into shock. "Is that a storage unit?" Ethan found a tiny latch disguised under the faux leather. "Emily," he said quietly, "what's in here?" Emily pressed trembling hands to her face. "I didn't know what was inside. I swear. They told me it was medicine. They told me to carry it and keep quiet. If I didn't—" Her voice cracked into a whisper. "They said they knew where I live." Ethan exchanged a glance with Jenna, then opened the collar's hidden compartment. Inside were small, sealed capsules, no bigger than his fingernail, each filled with a clear liquid. Jenna's eyes widened. "Liquid narcotics, professional packaging. This isn't amateur smuggling." Ethan felt anger ignite in his chest, hot and sharp. "They used you," he said, voice low. Emily flinched, as if pain were a physical strike. "They gave me the puppy so security would be sympathetic. They said if I looked nervous, it would seem like first-time travel anxiety." Atlas let out a bark that echoed against the metal walls, not warning, confirming. Ethan turned the collar in his hands. He'd seen things like this on missions. Innovative, cruel ways of slipping contraband past authorities. They targeted people who had no power. He handed the collar to Jenna carefully. "Bag scan," Jenna announced, lifting Emily's handbag to the UV scanner. Emily stood rigid, her arms crossed like she was trying to hold herself together. Ethan watched her closely. She wasn't hardened like the criminals he'd chased. She was soft, young, fragile, the type who apologized when someone else bumped into her. Something about her fear was too real. Jenna flipped the bag under the UV light, revealing faint glowing seams. Ethan's jaw clenched. "False lining," Jenna muttered. "Multiple compartments, professional sewing." Emily sank into the chair, burying her face in her hands. I didn't know. I was just supposed to deliver the puppy." Ethan crouched in front of her again. "Did someone threaten you?" She nodded, voice barely audible. "They said they'd take him away from me if I refused." Ethan blinked. "Take who? The puppy?" Emily shook her head slowly. "No, my real dog, my old dog. They have him. They sent me a video. He was crying. I heard him crying." Her voice shattered. A tear slipped down her cheek. Atlas whined softly and nudged his nose against Emily's leg, sensing her pain. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't let emotion interfere with duty, but this wasn't just a case. This was exploitation, manipulation, predators using innocence as currency. Jenna pulled out her radio. "We're escalating to federal involvement." Ethan stood, placing the puppy gently into Emily's lap. She held it like she was holding her own heart. Ethan touched Atlas's head. "You did good, boy." Atlas leaned into his side, eyes still locked on Emily, as if promising protection. Emily looked up, her voice small. What happens to me now? Ethan met her gaze steadily, and inside that moment, an unspoken promise formed. We're going to get whoever did this to you. Atlas barked once, sharp and sure, and the world shifted. The door to the private room sealed behind Emily with a soft, mechanical click, leaving Ethan and Atlas in the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the tiled floor. Atlas stood rigid, tail low, ears pinned forward, his body still humming with tension. Ethan could feel Atlas's anxious energy travel down the leash like electric wires. "Easy," Ethan whispered, but his own pulse wasn't steady. The discovery of the liquid narcotics hidden inside the puppy's collar had snapped something inside him, a memory of a mission overseas where a desperate civilian had been used as a pawn in a smuggling chain. Atlas sensed his shift and pressed his head briefly against Ethan's thigh, grounding him in the present. Inside the room, Officer Jenna Brooks continued examining Emily's belongings under UV light. Emily sat quietly, staring blankly at the floor as if her mind had already drifted far away. The puppy slept on her lap, tiny chest rising and falling, oblivious to the chaos around it. Jenna adjusted her posture and lifted one of the inner pouches with tweezers. The vial glittered. "Ethan!" Jenna called through the door window. "You need to see this!" Ethan pushed open the door and stepped inside. Emily lifted her head, her eyes wide like she feared every move he made might mean the end of her safety. Atlas remained just outside the threshold, muscles taut as coiled wire. Jenna placed the pouch on the metal table. "These aren't just narcotics. The seals are tamper-proof, pharmaceutical grade. This isn't petty smuggling." Ethan studied the pouch, the scent of chemicals faint but distinct. "This took planning," he muttered. "Manufacturing." Jenna nodded. Her face was serious, but her voice was calm. "There's more." She slid the backpack toward Ethan. He turned it inside out and found something else. Hidden beneath the stitched lining was a small tracking beacon the size of a quarter. He held it up to the light. Emily inhaled sharply, her composure fracturing. "They said the collar was just for security scans," she whispered. "I didn't know there was more. I didn't know there was anything like that." Ethan stepped closer, tone level but firm. "Who are they?" Emily wiped her nose with her sleeve, shoulders shaking. "They contacted me through a rescue dog forum. They said they needed to transport puppies to new homes. They even sent photos of dogs they claimed were adopted. They knew I loved animals." Her breath quivered. "They said I could earn money for helping." Ethan exchanged a look with Jenna. Criminal networks weren't stupid. They preyed on empathy. Jenna stepped aside as Ethan crouched in front of Emily, voice quiet. "You're not a criminal, Emily. You're a target." Emily swallowed. "No, I'm leverage." She nodded toward the puppy. "They took my real dog, Murphy, a 2-year-old mixed shepherd. He has one floppy ear. They know I'd do anything to get him back." Her voice cracked. Ethan saw the truth in her trembling lips. She wasn't lying. She was breaking. Before Ethan could speak, the door opened and a new voice filled the space. "We have a problem." Officer Reed Thorne entered, airport security lead. Reed was late 40s, tall and lean, with salt and pepper hair and a close-cut beard. Deep worry lines carved across his forehead and around his blue eyes, the kind earned from decades of dealing with emergencies. His shoulders were stiff under his uniform jacket, as if he never truly relaxed. Reed was known for being calm, until he wasn't. His temper was controlled, but volcanic when breached. Ethan had seen men like him in the Navy, men who had witnessed human darkness up close and carried the moral weight alone. Reed held up a small tablet. "We traced the tracking beacon." Jenna leaned forward. "Where is it pinging?" Reed tapped the screen. "Not inside the airport." He met Ethan's eyes. "It's moving. Fast." Emily's breath hitched, fear rising again. "They're here, aren't they?" Reed didn't answer directly. "We need to move to command." Emily shrank back. No, I don't want to go anywhere else. They'll find me." Ethan crouched again, carefully adjusting his tone to something softer. "Emily, listen to me. I've been where you are, feeling trapped, feeling like you're only alive because someone else allows it. But you're safe now." Her gaze lifted, searching his eyes, looking for something she needed. Certainty. His voice dropped even lower, steady and strong. "I don't let people I protect get hurt." Atlas, as though reinforcing Ethan's promise, nudged Emily's hand and let out a soft whine. Something softened in her eyes. "Okay," she whispered. Reed led the group toward the airport security command center, A fortified room above the concourse with reinforced glass walls and a view of the entire terminal. Inside the command center were monitors, radios, tactical maps, and a small team of personnel. One of them, a young man in his mid-20s with sandy blonde hair and freckles across his nose, turned around when Ethan entered. "Officer Kyle Dawson," Reed introduced, waving toward him. Kyle stood a little too stiffly, as if eager to prove himself. He had bright blue eyes, earnest and alert, and wore his uniform with the precise tidiness of someone who ironed his socks. He offered a respectful nod. Reed continued. "Kyle's been tracking nearby signals." Kyle pulled up the display. A blinking dot moved toward the airport. "Vehicle is approaching the arrivals road," Kyle announced. "Black van, no plates registered." Emily wrapped her arms around herself. "They're coming for the puppy. Or for her," Ethan said quietly. The command center tensed. Jenna dialed the Denver police liaison. Reed positioned himself near the window, hands behind his back. Kyle zoomed in on the feed. "ETA 3 minutes. Ethan crouched beside Atlas. Stay focused." Atlas stared down at the concourse, ears forward, every fiber on alert. Emily stood near the wall, shaking. "I never should have agreed. I was stupid." Ethan turned, voice sharp. "Don't say that. Desperation doesn't make you stupid. It makes you vulnerable. They took advantage of that." Emily squeezed the puppy gently, eyes soft with guilt. "Murphy, he's all I had." Something hardened in Ethan's chest. People who used innocence as leverage. He'd seen that horror before, overseas, in places without rules. Those memories sharpened him now. Reed's radio crackled. "Van has stopped at curb." Ethan straightened. Jenna positioned herself by the exit, hand on her sidearm. Kyle sent an alert to ground units. Atlas stood perfectly still, waiting for Ethan's command. Through the glass, Ethan spotted the van door open. A tall man stepped out. He wore a dark coat, hat pulled low, sunglasses hiding his eyes despite the dim winter light. Even from this distance, Ethan could sense it. This man wasn't nervous. He was confident, predatory. Reed muttered, "That's not a pickup guy. That's a controller." Ethan's jaw tightened. Controllers never touched product, unless the product was valuable or personal. The man lifted a phone to his ear. Emily's phone vibrated. She went pale. Reed snatched the device and showed Ethan the message that flashed on the locked screen. "Bring the puppy outside, now, or Murphy dies." Atlas growled. Ethan's voice dropped into the quiet, lethal calm of a seal. "They made a mistake." He clipped Atlas's lead to his vest. "They came to my battlefield." The winter night outside the terminal was a sheet of silver, snow falling in slow, lazy spirals under the yellow glow of the street lamps. From the upper windows of the airport command center, Ethan watched the black van idle at the curb, its engine humming like a cruel secret. His jaw clenched, and fury simmered beneath his composed demeanor. Not the explosive rage of impulsive men, but the cold, sharpened wrath of someone who had seen desperation exploited too many times. Atlas stood at his heel, body angled forward, nose lifted toward the van. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, but his muscles were drawn tight, his amber eyes drilling into the moving shadows below. Silent hunters recognized danger before others even sensed a spark. Emily sat in a corner of the room, clutching the tiny puppy against her chest. Her shoulders shook, tear tracks stained her pale cheeks. "I didn't choose this," she whispered, voice so small it nearly disappeared beneath the murmur of radio chatter. "They promised money. I needed it for my mom's treatment." She didn't look up, didn't look at anyone. "They said if I refused, they'd take the puppy back, and then they'd come for Murphy." Ethan softened his stance. Not pity, understanding. He crouched beside her. "You're not weak, Emily." She shook her head, her long hair falling forward, shielding her face like brittle armor. "I am. I should have said no." "People who love deeply make dangerous choices," he murmured. And he knew that truth too well. He remembered a mission in Kandahar, how he disobeyed orders to save a child trapped inside a collapsing building. That child lived. His teammate didn't. Atlas leaned forward and nudged Emily's hand with his nose. In the silent language of animals, he told her she wasn't alone anymore. Reed Thorne, the security chief, stepped forward. "We have one shot. If they sense anything is off, they'll bolt." His voice cut through the tension with the weight of experience. Reed wasn't a loud leader. He was a wall, unmoving, unshakable. The years had carved lines of responsibility into his face, but his eyes still burned with purpose. "Ethan, I'm sending Dawson down with a small squad. You and Atlas flank from baggage level." Reed looked at Emily. "You'll be with me, out of sight." Emily's breath hitched. She pressed the puppy closer. "What if they take him?" Ethan rose, steady and unyielding. "They won't, because I'll burn the world down before I let them." The thought was silent, but Atlas understood it like a vibration traveling through the leash. The team split up. Ethan and Atlas moved through an underground service tunnel leading to the loading docks. The tunnel smelled faintly of gasoline and winter salt, and Ethan's boots echoed sharply against the concrete. Atlas padded ahead, silent as a shadow. "Dawson, status," Ethan whispered into his radio. Kyle Dawson's nervous voice crackled through. "In position, 2 guards on standby. The van driver hasn't moved." Kyle Dawson, young, eager, and untested, was a mirror Ethan once saw in himself before war stripped innocence away. Ethan reached the lower exit door that opened to the outside near the curb. He knelt beside Atlas and checked his harness one more time. "You're the smartest one in this group," he murmured to the dog. Atlas responded with a low breath and placed one paw forward, ready. Ethan pushed the steel door with his shoulder. The snow greeted them with a hiss of cold air. They emerged behind a row of luggage carts. The black van sat ahead, its brake lights glowing faint red through swirling snow. A tall man leaned against the passenger side. This wasn't the same controller from the footage. This man was younger, mid-30s, lean, athletic, dressed in a heavy tactical winter coat. His face held sharp angles, strong jaw, thin lips, a narrow nose that looked like it had been broken once and never reset correctly. His haircut was military short, but something about him was wrong. His eyes were empty. Not cold, not angry, just vacant. Men like him didn't question orders. They executed them. Ethan recognized the type instantly. Former contracted soldier, or a mercenary who never stopped killing, even after the war ended. The man looked down at his phone and typed something. Ethan's earpiece buzzed seconds later. Emily's frightened whisper came through. He just texted me. Come alone." Ethan exhaled. These bastards were precise, patient, like snakes. Kyle spoke through the radio, voice shaky. "Ethan, we can take him now." "Negative," Ethan snapped. "We take him before we know where Murphy is. We lose leverage." Atlas stayed fully focused on the man. No barking this time, no rushing, only raw instinct. Atlas's tail lowered into the predator position. Ethan whispered, "Good boy. Wait for signal." Dawson's position shifted somewhere near the far pillars. "I've got eyes on his hands. No weapon I can see." Ethan narrowed his gaze. "Doesn't matter. Men like him are weapons." A sudden vibration hit Ethan's pocket. Emily's phone, still linked through Ethan's device, flashed a new message. "We have the dog. You have 60 seconds. Bring the puppy, or Murphy dies." Ethan's heartbeat hardened. Atlas released a guttural sound deep in his chest. Not fear, not anger. Certainty. This was the moment. "Dawson," Ethan said, voice steel, "stay down. No move until I say." Kyle whispered back, "Copy." Ethan signaled Atlas forward. They stepped into open view. Snow blew sideways. The van man saw them immediately. His lips curled into a slight smirk. "Wrong delivery," he said. His voice was smooth, flat, like he'd practiced sounding harmless. Ethan took one step more, boots sinking into the thin snow layer. "She's not coming." The smirk vanished. The man's hand slipped toward his jacket. Ethan didn't hesitate. "Atlas, now!" The German Shepherd exploded forward, silent thunder moving faster than any human could react. The man yanked a retractable blade from his coat, but Atlas hit him full force, jaws clamping onto his arm, driving him against the icy pavement. Ethan surged in, twisting the man's wrist and forcing the blade free. "Don't move," Ethan growled. The man spat blood onto the snow, breathing hard. "You think this stops anything?" Ethan tightened the arm lock. "Where's Murphy?" The man grinned at the ground. "You're already too late." Something in Ethan cracked. Atlas growled louder, leaning his full weight into restraining the man. A voice shouted from the van. The back doors flew open. Kyle Dawson yelled through the radio, "Contact! 2 more!" Gunfire sliced the air. Dawson returned fire, voice cracking with adrenaline. Ethan dragged the blade man behind a cart, while Atlas maintained pressure. Snowstorm chaos erupted across the curb, doors slamming, radios screaming. 2 more men sprinted from the van, one carrying a duffel bag. Ethan spotted the bag and knew. Atlas, bag! Atlas released the first man and charged for the duffel, locking onto the strap with his teeth, pulling it to the ground. The second man swung a kick. Atlas dodged and snapped at his wrist, forcing him backward into the snow. Kyle Dawson finally barreled into view, face flushed, hair wet with snow, holding his service weapon with both shaking hands. "Put your hands up!" he yelled. Surprisingly, the man obeyed. The duffel spilled open on the ground. Inside, another puppy harness. And worse, photos, Polaroids. Murphy, the real dog, caged, terrified. A scrap of paper fluttered out. Coordinates. Ethan felt something deep inside him ignite. He grabbed the slip of paper. "We're getting him back," he swore. Not loud, not to scare or to boast, just truth. Atlas pressed against his leg, breath harsh, chest heaving. They were no longer reacting. They were hunting. The night snow swallowed their footsteps as Ethan spoke into the radio. "We move, now," and the winter storm answered. Morning cracked over Denver with pale light pushing across the snow, painting the horizon in soft blue and muted gold. At the airport's rear service lot, now a secured federal evidence zone, Ethan stood beside Atlas, both of them still dusted with the frost of the night's pursuit. The cold air carried the scent of motor oil and melting snow. Ethan had barely slept, but something inside him felt steady, solid. Beside him, Atlas sat poised, fur glistening with tiny ice crystals, chest rising with calm confidence. Ethan kept a gloved hand resting on Atlas's back as if anchoring them both to the moment. Emily and the rescued dog, Murphy, were inside a heated patrol vehicle. She had refused to take her eyes off Murphy since they breached the warehouse hours earlier. The rescue itself had been brutal. Door kicked in, gun drawn, Atlas lunging ahead like a bullet of muscle and fur. But the ending was peaceful, Murphy whimpering, then collapsing into Emily's arms. For the first time since meeting her, Ethan saw a smile that wasn't strained by fear. A media van rolled into the lot now, cameras swiveling toward them. That was new. Ethan wasn't used to spotlights. He preferred sandstorms, night raids, places where lights meant incoming fire, not microphones. Reed Thorne, the security chief, approached with a man walking behind him. The newcomer was in his late 50s, short but powerful in presence. His iron gray hair slicked back neatly, scarf tucked perfectly into his dark navy coat. His face bore an expression of polished charm, used to giving speeches. "This is Deputy Chief Sam Walters from Denver PD," Reed introduced. Walters extended his hand to Ethan. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharp. "We wanted to speak directly to the SEAL responsible for stopping this." Ethan resisted the urge to grimace. "Atlas is the one who stopped it," he answered. "I just followed him." Walters chuckled softly, a practiced politician's laugh. "Modesty is rare. Admire it while it lasts, Reed." Ethan said nothing. He already didn't like the man's tone. Too oily, too self-important. Atlas must have felt it too. He shifted closer to Ethan's leg, ears tilted back in subtle disapproval. Walters turned toward the cameras adjusting their tripods. "The press is setting up for a statement," he announced. Reed crossed his arms. "We weren't planning on a statement." Walters gave a diplomatic half-smile. "But the city is." Before Ethan could protest, Walters added, "They're calling him the K9 who saw the invisible." Ethan looked down at Atlas, who blinked up calmly, as if unimpressed by titles. Atlas leaned into Ethan's leg again, steady, grounded, not a dog hungry for praise, but one anchored to duty. Jenna Brooks entered from behind them, brushing snow from her uniform. She stopped beside Ethan. "Emily's ready," she said. Ethan nodded. Emily stepped out of the patrol car, clutching the puppy to her chest. Her real dog, Murphy, a shepherd mix with one floppy ear and eyes that carried deep devotion, trotted at her heels. He hadn't left her side since the rescue. Emily looked as different now, not just relieved, freed. Her long brown hair was tucked into a beanie, traces of dried tears still visible, but her posture was taller, lighter. She looked like someone breathing air for the first time in months. "Ethan," she said quietly, her voice full of something gentle, fragile, gratitude mixed with awe, "you saved him. You saved everything." Ethan shook his head. Atlas did. Emily looked at the German shepherd and bit her lip, emotion thickening her voice. "Then thank you, both." Murphy bumped his head gently against Ethan's hand, like he understood. Behind them, the small media group snapped photos. Walter stepped in front of the cameras, commanding attention like he'd done it thousands of times. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "last night a smuggling ring, using animals as transport, was taken down. Thanks to a Navy SEAL and his extraordinary canine partner, a young woman and her dogs were saved." He stretched his arm toward Ethan and Atlas. "Meet Denver's newest heroes." The flash of camera bulbs erupted like a snowstorm of light. Ethan swallowed his discomfort. He wasn't used to applause. He associated loud noise with chaos, sirens, alarms, gunfire. He never fought for headlines. He fought because when instinct said protect, he obeyed. Atlas, surprisingly, stood tall under the attention, ears erect, eyes forward. He carried the moment with quiet nobility. A reporter, a woman with a red clipboard, long blonde hair, and curious green eyes, stepped forward. She had a warm face that hinted she once dreamed of journalism as storytelling, not scandal. "May I ask something?" Ethan sighed. "Go ahead." When Atlas first barked at Emily, "What did you think?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "I all trusted him." The reporter blinked. "No hesitation? None." Walters leaned in, as if that single quote carried political currency. Ethan ignored him. "Atlas never reacts to a person," Ethan continued. "He reacts to what's happening beneath the surface. Fear, pain, secrets." Emily's eyes glistened. The reporter lowered her clipboard. "So, you're saying he sensed she needed help?" "Atlas doesn't hunt criminals," Ethan said quietly. "He finds the ones who need saving." The cameras stopped. Even Walters had no words. Atlas sat, tail sweeping the snow once. Emily crouched in front of Atlas, the puppy still tucked in her arm. "You saw me," she whispered. "You saw I was drowning." Atlas leaned forward until his forehead touched hers, as if giving permission to breathe again. Walters cleared his throat loudly, unable to stand being outside the spotlight. "We will be awarding Atlas a service medal at the city ceremony this week," Ethan interrupted, voice low but unbreakable. "No medals," Walters sputtered. He earned." Ethan looked straight into the man's eyes and said, "We don't do it for medals." Silence spread like snowfall. Emily stood up slowly. "May I sign the adoption papers now?" she asked Reed. Reed nodded, already pulling out a folder. "They're ready. The puppy is yours." Emily hugged the little retriever close, smiling so wide it looked like sunlight had burst inside her. "His name is Chance," she whispered. Ethan arched a brow. "Chance? Because you gave us one." Atlas nudged Chance's tiny paw. The little retriever yawned in return, a soft, helpless sound. Jenna laughed. "Looks like Atlas approves." Walters backed off. Reed closed the folder. The media lowered their cameras. The snow kept falling, soft, undemanding, pure. Ethan sat down on the airport stair rail, looking at the snow-covered runway. Atlas sat beside him, head nudging under Ethan's palm. Ethan stroked the dog's fur. Warmth moved through him, a feeling like belonging. "You didn't just sniff out crime," Ethan whispered. "You sniffed out a soul that needed saving." Atlas pressed closer, eyes soft. Emily stood a few feet away, Murphy and Chance on either side of her. Two dogs safe, a life restored. For the first time since the explosion that scarred Ethan's face and nearly shattered his spirit, he didn't feel like a weapon. He felt like a guardian. The light grew brighter across the horizon. Snow kept falling, and somewhere deep inside Ethan's chest, a door unlocked. The door back to being human. Atlas rested his head in his lap. Ethan smiled into the winter quiet. Dawn finally belonged to heroes. In the quiet snowfall of that Denver morning, as Atlas rested his head against Ethan's hand, and Emily held her two dogs with a heart finally free from fear, the truth of the world felt simple. Sometimes miracles don't come as thunder or lightning. Sometimes they arrive on four paws, wrapped in loyalty and guided by an instinct that could only be shaped by something greater than ourselves. Maybe God places the right souls in our path exactly when we need them, whether they wear uniforms, carry scars, or wag their tails. And just like Atlas sensed the cry for help that no one could see, may we learn to notice those around us who are silently breaking, silently hoping someone will care. In your everyday life, listen for those small whispers of instinct. Maybe that's not coincidence. Maybe that's God nudging your heart. If this story touched you, please share it so someone else might find hope today. Leave a comment with who you are praying for, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to help us continue spreading stories of courage, kindness, and faith. May God bless you and protect you and your loved ones, just as He protected the souls in this story.